Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Daily Palace podcast brought to you by the Global Sports Podcast Network. Wale Bakar is my name. Great to know you're there with us as we talk everything Crystal Palace again tonight. Joe Lodge joins me on the pod tonight. Great to see you, Joe. I'm not sure we've been on the pod together in a while. How you doing, pal?
Yeah, no, very, very well. All the better for seeing you again, Wale. It was a tough week in Lanzarote without your dulcet tones.
Anyway, it's a lot of football, during the week. The Champions League, the Europa League, interesting games in the Champions League gone down already this week. City PSG was a fantastic watch. Interestingly, I watched only the second half, so I just came at the right time. And it's always nice to see City toil sometimes. Although I just wonder whether if they crash out of the Champions League, whether that might mean trouble because they can then focus on the Premier League and they might just go on those runs. They're more than capable of going on, the rest of the season without losing a game. But I don't know whether it's good for the Premier League if they crash out of the Champions League, you think?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's kind of this season's almost a write-off for City, isn't it now? The Champions League was their one thing there that they had to be going for. If they do end up going out of that, I mean, it would take a serious capitulation from Liverpool. Dare I say, even a reasonable capitulation from Arsenal or Nottingham Forest to allow City back into the title race. So I think, yeah, it's a Champions League or bust for them. They're going to have a good final game. But yeah, I mean, I've never been that bothered about. I know a lot of people want to see all the English teams do well in the Champions League. It's never even an issue for me. I always kind of, as a fan of a bad English team in Oxford United, I've always taken some kind of pleasure out of watching even the big boys in the country get battered. There were 2 years in a row, weren't there, where Arsenal got beaten 10-2 on aggregate by Bayern Munich, and I enjoyed every one of those goals.
Anyway, I'm sure with the new format of the Champions League, the final match day next week will have loads of excitement about it. But hopefully in a couple of seasons, we might be talking about the Champions League and Crystal Palace in the same sentence. But for now, we'll just stick to what we know and hope the Palace will keep improving their form in the English Premier League. And talking of form, we will be kickstarting things tonight with talks about Jean-Philippe Mateta. He got 2 goals in the last game against West Ham. It's the second half of the season. Last season, he had a splendid second half. Can he go on to have another great second half? We will be discussing that to start things off tonight. We will, of course, spend some minutes to talk about new signing Roman Esse and the fact that it's from the Championship, whether Palace will yet again strike gold with Championship signings. And of course, we will take a look at the Palace defense with Trevor Chalobah gone back to Chelsea. I hate to say he had a great game, by the way, the other night against Wolves. Anyway, let's get on and kickstart things with Jean-Philippe Mateta. 2 goals against West Ham. It will be great for Palace because if he goes on to that kind of form that he had in the second half of last season, the vast majority of his goals, coming in the second half of last season. But beyond the goals is also, the body language and how he seems to be enjoying, his football again. We did see a bit of that, against West Ham. Maybe we've seen a bit of that in some of the last couple of games. But is this a possibility that, it will go on to reach those sort of heights that he got to last season? 8 goals he has already this season. He's got 16 in the all last season in the EPL, Joe.
Well, I think he can match the 16 in terms of pure goal scoring. I don't think he can match his form from right at the end of last season. One, because he's without Michael Esse. Palace are playing less attackingly, and two, because it's an unsustainable rate for almost anyone other than Messi or Ronaldo in their primes. He scored 9 in his last 6 last season, so I don't know if you can quite recapture that form. That said, if you're whether you are Martin Lewis, David Attenborough, the Premier Inn, all the great cultural institutions of the country have a question to ask themselves, which is, how do you improve on perfection? And it's no different with Jean-Philippe Mateta. I think that was a perfect centre forward goal getting strikers run at the end of last season. But we are seeing him add more strings to his bow now. So even if he doesn't match the rate of scoring that he had at the back end of last season, he can give more to the team than he was at that point when he was finishing off a lot of moves and really just being the focal point in the final third. The way he's been playing in the last few games has got me questioning why Zidane didn't score more goals, because his link up has gone to another level. He's always been sort of solid, good hold up play and decent vision, but that's really coming to the fore now that he's got players like Sarr and Nketiah who can run off him. That really was evident in, was it the run from Nketiah which led to the penalty against West Ham at a weekend? Mateta's little sort of shimmy and weak foot through ball through to him there is absolutely perfect. And you're seeing him grow into this role where you think, yeah, he can be a proper top class centre forward, not just a kind of battering ram or a goal scorer, like a real refined all round top player. Yeah, I mean, the man, so suave, so handsome, so talented. You should hate him, but there's nothing hateful about him. He's beautiful.
I just wonder whether it could, yeah, it's looking like it's coming into some groove in terms of how it links up play. His performance overall is looking like what we know he's able to achieve. But I just look at how important getting the goals are for the number 9 of any team in the Premier League. If you are going to stay in the Premier League and really move up on the table, then you need, a number 9 getting those goals. And his goals were invaluable last season, especially in the form that he had when Olivier Glasner joined. It's proven he can get goals, just as you mentioned. I just wonder whether, the lack of competition for him up top, so to speak, maybe is also a reason for him not, getting to the best level he can get to. Eddie Nketiah was supposed to be competition for him. With the amount of money Eddie came in for, you would even expect maybe he is at the moment supposed to be Palace, number 1, number 9, but that's not the situation. Edouard wasn't, great competition for Mateta, although they tend to play together at some point. But Mateta seemed like the better of the two. Mateta at the moment is the best number 9. Palace have got. Do you think that lack of competition for him up top is also a reason he's not getting to the level or the height is able to get to?
Potentially, although I do think there's been again a stylistic shift with Palace. He's just not going to get as many chances, or maybe not as many chances that suit him as well, in this more kind of defensive Palace setup. I think the competition definitely propelled him in a way to the level that he had last season, because at a point, Edouard was good competition for him in the sense that neither of them were especially good or convincing. And it was a toss-up for who would be Palace's number 9. And then I think that spurred Mateta on to really work hard on some elements of his game, work hard and sort of transform his physique a bit. I know he had a lot of work for a personal trainer to make him a bit more nimble and explosive. And yeah, so I definitely think in that sense, competition has proven good for him and clearly is something he can rise to. He's a player who likes a challenge. I think he loved leading that France team at the Olympics. But maybe it doesn't need to be someone breathing down his neck that motivates him. Maybe it's a good run of form, positivity around Palace, optimistic, but albeit galvanising push for Europe in the second half of the season. I don't think Palace will get Europe, but if they feel it's in sight, that could galvanise him, that could get the best out of him. So I'm not sure he needs another, another striker of his kind of quality pushing him on. That said, I think if he did have one, again, he would rise to it, and it's the kind of thing that could motivate him. So yeah, it might help.
Well, 20 games he started in the Premier League this season, 22 in all, 8 goals and 1 assist. Whether that is enough for the top number 9 of Palace remains to be seen. I think at the end of the day, it will be judged at the end of the season, because we had a lot to say midway last season, and then he just went in that blistering form and got all those goals, and those goals were quite important for Palace. And you make a very interesting point with the change of style with Palace, and whether he's able to get the kind of chances. But you also cannot rule out the addition of some talent. Sa is not Olise, but then Sa is some talent, and Ketia is great talent as well, and maybe things at the moment just haven't panned out. What Glasner was saying in his presser about how Palace continue to get used to the Premier League and the team, the changes in the team, and for some reason there's still a lot of learning for the team to do. But if he does end up going in that kind of run that he did, in the second half of last season, it will be great for Palace, and there's no telling as to where Palace will finish come the end of the season. We'll take a very quick pause, and when we return, we will talk about the new signing, Roman Esse. Maybe, just maybe, is the one to, bring out the best in Jean-Philippe Mateta, or maybe it is going to be a great signing of his own. We'll get into all of that in a moment.
This podcast is part of the Global Sports Podcast Network, the only network bringing you exclusive daily news and views on your Premier League team, the Premier League, women's football, and fantasy football. A unique listening experience that puts fans first, bringing you the very latest breaking news from your team. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and make us your first listen every day. Global Sports Podcast Network, every club, every day. I think you're muted, mate.
I am. Still the Daily Palace podcast brought to you by the Global Sports Podcast Network. Wale and Joe here tonight discussing Crystal Palace, because we'll go on to talk about Roman Esse now, the new boy, 19-year-old from Millwall, again from the Championship. A lot of hope as to whether this will be another bullseye situation for Palace after the experience with Eberechi Eze, Michael Olise, and of course, most recently, Adam Wharton, is one that excites a lot of fans because of the style of play, because of the fact that he's able to is always ready to take on the defender. That's not something that Palace have got at the moment, aside from Eze, who we know is able to do that. But Eze tends to any part of the pitch, he's able to take you on. But that tricky winger was ready to go to the byline, get a crossing, a caught in, and have a shot at goal. It's not something that's very abundant in the Palace team. And Roman Esse, although he's 19, looks like one that gets a lot of Palace fans excited. When you look at him and what he's done at Millwall, as much as you know of, and you look at the previous, those 3 names that I mentioned earlier, and what they came on to do at Palace in the Premier League, how excited are you about his signing?
Well, there are sort of a few reasons I could really see it working out. The first one, and most important one, is the one that you referenced, setting the section up there. While it is Palace's track record of buying from the Championship, it's a bit like watching my girlfriend in the homeware section of TK Maxx. That she's like just got some awareness of the marketplace, how to find value, how to find great things that your average consumer doesn't have. I think Palace are like that in the Championship. They just get it. They get how players translate how their qualities in Championship translate to the Prem. Who that's performing well down there does have the potential to make step up and be a top quality player, and who doesn't. And where the value lies, just seem to have that down to a T. I also think he'll have chances at Palace. The pathway into the team is there, as you say. He's a creative, attacking player with that sort of skill set that really only Esse has in the team at the moment. So that'll give him opportunities to play when, a lock needs to be picked or Esse needs to be rested. He's also left-footed, which I think gives him an extra dimension. And modern managers think a lot about angles and how you can open up the game with the footedness of certain players. And Palace have a pretty right-footed attack at the moment, so having a lefty in there is another potential benefit and could count in his favour in getting some minutes. And he can do the things that are hardest to coach. I think where he thrives is flair and dribbling and the stuff that operates on the subconscious level. I've seen him play, actually. I saw him play against Oxford United on New Year's Day. I saw him consistently beat his man. He didn't have that much output, but he beat his man time and time again. And that is the hardest thing to learn. And that gives any player you're selling great upside, because the other bits of the game, whether it's a physicality, decision-making, crossing, finishing, all that stuff can kind of be improved on the training ground. And I'm not sure you can really train. There's a drill that kind of teaches you that flair and improvisation. So all that's really positive. The one big caveat is don't treat him as the same as Esse and Eisei. He's got 4 goals and 1 assist at the midway point in the Championship this season. It's good for a 19-year-old, but it's not ridiculous, and the Prem is much higher level. Eisei, the season before Palace signed him, got 19 goal contributions in a pretty bad Reading side, as I recall. Maybe they weren't that bad at that point. I think they were already quite bad by then. And similarly, Esse got 22 goal contributions in again, I don't think they were exactly a thriving QPR team. So there's a big difference there. There's a gulf in terms of their output at that level that I think means we should temper our expectations a bit and not expect him to hit the ground running to the same extent those guys did. But I definitely think he's a high potential player that's got something immediately valuable to offer to Palace.
And you make a very interesting point. But what makes him particularly excited is you spoke earlier about the change of style of Palace being more defensive, and a couple of times you've seen Palace try to hit a team on a counter attack, and then it just slows down due to the lack of pace of sometimes when you have players like Kamada on the pitch and a couple of others, but. With him, that is something that excites me. With this style, a counter-attack is something that will happen a number of times in a game. We've seen some teams use it to great effect. Liverpool, Man City with Savinho, and some of the other teams, like Jadon Sancho does great, for Chelsea on that side as well in the counter-attack. So if that ever comes up, his pace will be something that will be important to a counter-attacking Palace side. And that will be, going back to what we're used to with Palace over the years, Zaha, Yannick Bolasie, Olise, and the likes. That is something that we haven't seen much of this season. Although I wonder, because, Millwall have always played the 4-2-3-1. There's a bit of a tweak with Palace with 3, 2, 3 in the defense, and then and 2 behind the striker. where it will fit into, that is a big question, and that's something that Glasner gets paid for. I'm not about to start,
Yeah, it'd be
racking
nice if
my head.
he's up for getting wing back a go. That might be useful.
Well, we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. Palace, because next game is up against Brentford, is it? We'll see how that goes. Has to be Brentford because I know we're back to the start of the season. Yeah, has to be Brentford. Anyway, we'll take a very quick pause, and when we return, we will shift our focus from the attack to the defense for the Palace team.
Here at Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform. Zencastr came out the clear winner. 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs. It's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr.
Thank you for staying with us. It's the Daily Palace podcast brought to you by the Global Sports Podcast Network. Remember, at official GSPN, that's how you link up with us across all social media platforms. Because feel free to link up with the official Palace page, official Daily Palace social media platforms as well. I'm just making sure that I've got the. Do I have it now? I'm just making sure I've got the right handle anyway. Just hit the search button, Daily Palace across all social media platforms, and we'll be glad to have a chat with you. But let's get to talk about the defense of Palace with the return of Trevor Chalobah to Chelsea. That changes things, so to speak, as far as the pecking order is concerned. It did seem like it was Lacroix, Gay, and then another person in the three-man defense. More often than not, has been Trevor Chalobah. It's put in some great performances, got a couple of goals, but he's gone back to Chelsea. The American Richards has filled in a number of times, but we have to remember it wasn't always first choice at the start of the season. It was Shadi Riyad who played alongside Gay and Anderson. Then Anderson left. Shadi Riyad got injured. Nathaniel Klein we've seen in that position a couple of times this season, although Richard has had his bout with injury as well this season. That has been a very critical thing, the injuries to the defense. But we know it's Lacroix Gay who then joins them in the back. It's a big question with Chalobah Gonjo.
Well, I think the formula that Palace had with Chalobah was very good, very effective. I think Palace are something like second in the league for clean sheets since November or from November 1st onwards, something like that. Not sure the exact statistic, but I think the reason it worked so well is partly, obviously, it's the relationships the players form and getting used to playing together, but there's also an element of between the three of them, they have a great blend of sort of composure, quality on the ball, and also sort of pace, power, and aggression. I think what Chalobah brought to that partly was the sort of power and aggression side of it, whereas Gahey and Lacroix are slightly more kind of composed, cultured, modern centre backs. Chalobah could put himself about a bit more. So in that regard, I probably would opt for Richards over Riyad from what we know about the two players we've seen of them. He's bigger, he's stronger. Don't think he's not like combative and confident and vocal in the same way that Chalobah was, but I think he is more so that than Riyad from what we can tell about him. Again, the little bits we've seen of him for Palace at the start of the season, in pre-season, and what we know about him from Betis. That said, I think Riyad might be the player with the highest ceiling of the two of them. He seems like he's very composed on the ball, classic La Masia kind of centre back. I just think the qualities that are being lost with Chalobah, again, that sort of strength and set piece threat, are better compensated by bringing Richards into the team probably than Riyadh. If is also kind of, again, if it makes any difference, he's right-footed and he can plug straight into that right side centre-back role, whereas Riyadh would open questions about whether you move Gueye plays so well left centre-back over to the right, and because he's left-footed, but obviously if it was Gueye who left, in the same vein, I'd say Riyadh's the one you'd probably want to see step up because he's more like for like. But what you want to do right now, if you're Oliver Glasner, I think, is disrupt the defensive formula as little as possible. And that probably means Richards as your guy rather than Chadi Riyadh. Failing a £60 million raid to bring back Trevor Chalobah, which I'd also approve of.
60 million? That's a lot of money for a matter, no? But
that's
if that happens, that would most likely mean Gay is left. So, because where's that money coming from? And there's already talks about that possibly being what could happen in the summer, but we'll have to wait to see. But you make a very valid point with the Richards and the fact that he's more settled as a playing in that right-sided part of the defensive three, and whether you would then have to make changes with Chadi Riyadh coming in. That's quite interesting. Isn't Rob Alden still at Palace? I don't know what's been going on with him. I know he played a number of Premier League 2 games.
Yeah, I think him and Glasner have seemingly irreparable beef, don't they? I don't know if Oliver Glasner said something about hair transplants that offended Rob Holding or something like that, but who knows?
Anyway, but it does seem like it will be one of Richards and Chad Riyadh. Richards at the moment might edge it. He's played more games, at the club. He's been at the club longer. He's had that opportunity to gel with the draw of Lacroix and Mackay. But it is nice to have that sort of competition. And it must be straightforward for these centre-backs, knowing that there's a chance that they know there will be 3 of them. So that creates more opportunity, and maybe it does, give them more fire to challenge for the sport. If it was a 4-man defense, it's just 2 centre backs starting. But with the Glasner style, there's a chance for 3 centre backs playing week in, week out. So it will definitely maybe sort of give them more fire as regards fighting for that spot. We know 2 is sealed already, barring any injuries. It's just that third part of the 3-man defense that will be up for grabs. But who knows? Maybe there might be someone challenging Gay or Lacroix for their spot in the 3-man defense as well. Anyway, we will leave things there tonight as far as the pod is concerned. I should say very quickly, I might have mixed my words up earlier. At GSPN Official, that's how you link up with the network across social media platforms. At GSPN Palace, that's how you link up with us. We'll be glad to have a chat with you. If you've gotten this far, feel free to drop your comments and let us know what you think, and we'll be glad to, as I said, talk to you as regards your observations and, of course, your words. Joe, thank you really for being a part of the pod tonight.
Thank you very much for having me, Wale.
All right. That's it tonight. Link up with another duo, or maybe try 3 of the team tomorrow for another episode of the Daily Palace podcast. From me and Joe, thank you. Bye for now.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.